When you're starting out as a documentary filmmaker, the gap between your creative ambition and your technical expertise can feel massive. In this video, I sit down with Harry, an early career filmmaker who's about to shoot his first ever character-driven documentary. And I'm gonna help him navigate a ton of firsts: how to work with shy characters, how to shoot something that both you're proud of and makes the client happy at the same time, and how to chip away at post-production while you're still in the field. If you're prepping for a big doc project or just looking for ideas for how to stay organized and sane while filming, this one is for you. Tell me a little bit about yourself and where you're at in your filmmaking journey, and then we can get into how I can help you on whatever project you got working on right now.
My name is Harry. I'm 27. Still early on in my filmmaking journey. Don't come from any sort of creative or arts background. I studied engineering, was very sort of like STEM, nerdy numbers. Out of university, went straight into a career in finance where I was like 4.5, 5 years. Just a couple of months ago, I actually quit that in order to pursue some self-employment ventures. But also to take some time, slow down and pursue some of my more creative hobbies that I've had. When I was young, me and my friends at school always used to make short movies and whatever and just have a blast. And they've all since gone off to become actors and directors. And I was the one who went sort of serious finance path, I guess. Okay. And whilst I was working, I had spare time and I would make, sort of fun travel vlog videos and some like semi-serious, I like shot a friend's wedding, but like kind of, just sort of passive stuff. And now that I've got the time and opportunity to sort of do something a bit more serious, I wanted to sort of start feasting on some projects that gave me sort of creative fulfillment and was content that I was personally really proud of. Travel vlogs are fun, and I've got a YouTube channel and I post them and everything, but it's not content that I'm necessarily proud of that I want to sort of keep sharing with the world. It's kind of content for content's sake. So
I see.
When I wanted to sort of pursue and make something a bit more serious and make something that mattered, as it were, I think documentary filmmaking just sort of lent so perfectly to that sort of format. That's when I came across your channel, sort of deep dived on all the videos. Just a quick explainer on the project I've got coming up. So it's the first sort of semi-serious project that I've done or that I will be doing. So I'm very excited for it. A family friend is venturing. We're leaving next week. We're going to Japan for a month and a half, just over 6 weeks. And they're undertaking a large charity walk endeavor. It's to commemorate the 80th anniversary of the bombs being dropped on Japan, which is this year. So we're going to do a 300-mile walk from Hiroshima, where the first bomb was dropped, to Nagasaki, where the second bomb was dropped. And they have their charity that they have and manage, and they needed some help, from admin, gear, foods, whatnot. So I'm going in that capacity. But also they needed some less artistic content for charity purposes, talking about the goal, the aims, the mission, filming it as it goes along. They also wanted to film some content for social media, of course, as I feel everyone does. And also on the side, the project that I'm personally more excited about is they wanted to make a more narrative story about the walk, about the landscape, about the mission. And that's the one I wanted to reach out to you about, because that's where I have a bit more creative freedoms. That's where I've been trying to sort of brainstorm and do some pre-production on what's going to be involved in that. So in terms of just some immediate questions, I guess, I watched some of your videos about, story splines, how to choose a great character, how to sort of form a narrative in a documentary. And the challenge that I faced is that they want the content. However, the person actually doing the walking is very camera shy and doesn't necessarily want to be the focal point of attention. And I know that probably, is a massive juxtaposition to what you were saying in choosing a main character, and that's not necessarily going to make a compelling watch. So I was just wondering, have you ever done something like that? Or if you've been more selective with the documentaries you make, do you only choose, characters who want to be there, as it were?
Yeah, I think I've worked with all sorts of characters, because sometimes I do have the freedom to be very selective about the character that I'm choosing. And then sometimes I'm hired to come onto projects where I had no say in choosing at all. And I kind of have to deal with whatever is there. So I've worked with all sorts. My question back to you would be, have you experienced that this individual is shy and doesn't want to express themselves on camera, or is that something that they're telling you? And
The latter.
by they,
Yeah.
I mean like the organization who's supporting the walk?
I know. So the subject in question is my family friend, and they run this charity. So there are other players involved, but my main connection is with the person who will be the subject of the movie. I haven't shot any content with them before, so I don't actually necessarily know what they're like once they get in front of a camera. But I've been told by them in advance, heads up, I don't necessarily want to be in the spotlight because I am camera shy. Yet at the same time, they have specifically asked for content to showcase the mission, the charity, the goal, the objectives, etc. So I wasn't necessarily sure how to tell that story in a compelling way when it's not about the characters themselves involved.
Yeah.
Or on
So I don't think this is necessarily a bad thing. I think you're still at the point where you have no idea what this person's going to be like on camera. They might turn out to be incredible on camera, and they might have that characteristic that I talked about in that video, which is that they are not performative on camera. And that's really good, because some people you'd meet and they would be like, I love being on camera, I'm so cool with it. And then when the red light goes on,
just performing the whole time.
Yeah, they're just like performing for the camera. It's possible that this individual is going to be one of those who like they understand what you're there to capture, the value of it, and that they have that kind of like disinterestedness in some way about the actual physical camera being in front of them, in which case they might just like ignore you altogether and behave completely naturally, which is absolutely something that we look for in documentary filmmaking. So based on what you're saying here, I wouldn't go in to the project with the assumption that they're going to be poor on camera. What I would do if I was you, I would have kind of like two main conversations with them. The first conversation would be aligning with them on like the value of what documenting this story is going to do for the organization as a whole. Now, anytime that I get reached out to by nonprofit organizations or individuals like the person you're talking about, you know, they are in the business of running a nonprofit or doing charity because they are selfless in a way. They don't want to be the center of attention. So that's great.
Yeah, that's true.
So you need to have a conversation with them that essentially frames it for them to make sure that they know, like, yes, I am going to be following you because that is the story that's here to tell. However, it's not for, making you a celebrity. It's not about making you out to be this incredible individual. We're going to use your story as this like conduit to kind of tell a larger story about this issue you care about. So you want to have that conversation with them right up top so that they understand that anytime you're around filming, anytime that you're going to be there on this huge journey, that they understand you're in line with them on the larger purpose of this project. You're not there just to like make them, an influencer or something like that. Cause that will be the big red flag. So once you show them
that was their exact red flag they called that.
So once you show that you have alignment with them, I think they're going to be a lot more bought into the project. Then the second thing that I would do if I were you is if you have the creative control on the project, if you have a sense of how the days are going to flow, I would try to paint the picture of what they can expect, and also paint the picture of like what the boundaries are between like when you're filming and when you're not, who's in power, who's not, who has control, who is not. When you tell someone that they're going to be a character in a documentary, they have no idea whether that means you are going to be following them, from the moment that they wake up to the moment that they go to bed, where they have like very little privacy, or does it mean, hey, we're just going to do a 20-minute interview at the end of each day. You pretty much won't know I'm here. Like it could be tons of different things. Yeah. And you might not know
the
exactly.
The latter is definitely what they've told me they would like. Definitely they don't want some sort of, invasive shot by shot of here's how every day goes and this is how grimy it is when they brush their teeth in a lake, et cetera, et cetera. They kind of want to keep it more on brand, on mission. But like you said, exactly how you said it, they don't want cameras being on them to make them feel like they're trying to be an influencer or be in the spotlight, because it's more about the cause, yet they want it to be a less... I'm still very new to this, so I'm not necessarily sure how you would classify different types of documentaries, but, you know, there's one which is going to be clean, clinical, tripod shots and, you know, talking head interviews about the goal. And then, you know, we're going to have cinematic B-roll off on the side and maybe some, you know, historical archive footage that I'll pull in to talk about things. But then separate to that, they want something a bit more, you know, involved, on the ground, handheld, and it's more narrative in nature. But what that is yet, we're still trying to figure out in a way that they're comfortable with, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, that is throwing a lot at you, and you should be aware that they are throwing a lot at you.
I always kind of thought that was, therefore, as the creative person, that's on me they throw everything at me, and then I try and, you know, provide, you know, a feasible output.
Yeah, I mean, I think based on where you said you are in your creative journey right now, like you don't have enough experience to know like what the workload should be to get a certain quality of product out. So, I mean, when I was just getting my initial reps, it was like, yeah, I'll say yes to whatever, right? And then you figure it out as you go. So what you should be aware of going into this project, that like they might have very different stylistic visions for like what the social media looks like, what like the talking head interviews look like for like a board meeting and then like what the narrative, like documentary that's like the longer form piece is going to look like. Usually when people come to you with like stylistic visions, I try as the documentary filmmaker to get a sense of like how much experience do they have in production. Because they might throw something at you, a bunch of stuff at you, and you can say, great, if you want that, you know, I'm going to need to hire XYZ because I'm going to need to focus my attention on this, right? Obviously, you're not doing that in this circumstance with the timeline and everything like that. But what you could say, hey, because we're constrained by budget, by the amount of people we have, here's what I would like to propose based on your vision. So it's kind of like a negotiation of creative vision. My worry for you is if they give you very distinct stylistic guidelines for like all these different outlets, because creating for YouTube is very different than creating for Instagram, than creating for a film festival.
Sure.
So you just need to figure out how to align with them on something that is maybe a middle ground where you can kind of take components for everyone, and then you don't have to just be code switching constantly between like, wait, what piece is this for? What medium is this for? You can kind of just focus on what the story that you want to tell and make sure that you have kind of like short form sound bites that you can then extract for, you know, short form platforms. But I mean, it's
and then
very difficult.
I can pull that together in the edit rather than having, you know, this is going to be a shoot specifically for social content, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. I would probably think in your place right now, I would think about, I want to tell, if the long form story is important for them, I can tell it's important for you. I don't know if it's important for them, and I don't know if they're paying you it's such that you have to really deliver for them. So you can either let me know or keep that caveat in mind.
Oh, well, yeah, I mean, I don't mind. No. So context is the charity's not that big. And as you said, it's a not-for-profit. So they're not paying me for the content. Kind of the family friend aspect of it. But they are covering room and board and food as I follow them around for 6 weeks, which is a fairly, extensive time period. Yeah. So yeah, it's kind of both sides are getting something out of it. Right. It's not like a client paying shoot that I'm sure, more serious stuff like you.
So that gives you a certain sense of leverage. Yeah. And leverage to say like, hey, I'm spending 6 weeks of time here, essentially donating my time and my skills and my energy. Because of that, you have the leverage to say what you want to make, I think.
That's true. No, you're right.
So if the main value for you is like you want to practice your skills when it comes to a longer form documentary that focuses on character and maybe has some more like longer artistic shots, then I say go and do that. And then place your focus on that while also keeping in mind that like I do have to do some quick turn edits of the footage that I'm gathering to deliver on what they are expecting as well, because you want to maintain that relationship. You want to also
Of course,
get experience with creating for social, because we all have to do that. But I say all this because asking you to produce for 3 different platforms and 3 different styles is very challenging for you to be code switching stylistically. So I would focus on like the one style, the one output that you want to get the most out of what you're going for, and then figure out within that creative constraint or that bucket how to then take pieces for what they need. Does that make sense?
For sure. Yeah, no, that does make sense.
Cool.
This was going to be one of the rapid fire questions I held towards the end, but it's a bit relevant, so I'll just bring it forward. I know on some of the projects you've done, it's kind of like, a concise 3-4 days, go in, record everything, leave, and then do all the editing. On shoots where it's been like a much longer period, in my instance, it's 6 weeks. Are you editing on the go as it goes? Because I know that if all I do is catalog and file manage the footage, and when I get out, I've got, 3 terabytes of footage that I just need to edit together, it's probably going to be a bit overwhelming. I was wondering, how do you navigate, especially like I've got the 3 different deliverables, as it were, how would you approach sort of longer shoots where you're recording over multiple weeks?
So if I'm recording over multiple weeks, as much as I can, I love to kind of chip away at those post-production elements. And often what that looks like is I'm chipping away at like what an assistant editor would really do. So an assistant
I'll be honest,
editor,
I have no idea what an assistant editor would do. So
totally.
I'd love to hear.
Okay. So for example, when I'm on a shoot, I might be shooting in like 4K every day, like 4K resolution, but I'm often editing with 1080
Proxies.
or 720 proxy files. Are you familiar with proxy file workflow?
Yeah.
Okay. So essentially making low resolution versions. So an assistant editor job might be taking like that raw footage or that 4K footage and doing the process of both organizing the footage into different buckets in your post-production software, but then also doing things like creating those proxies. Okay.
Sure.
Depending on the amount of time that you have at the end of shoots, if you have the energy, or if you have like, big chunks during your day where you're just like in the van or something on the way, tracking
There
this walk.
is going to be a lot of that. Yeah. That's what I'm thinking.
So I would say like first priority as you go would be to like make sure you have your organization in your editing software pretty dialed. Everything's, you have a convention for
everything's
how you're dating
labeled,
footage.
categorized, bins are made. Yeah.
Exactly. So you have like all your buckets. I'd get those dialed, and you can start putting footage into there. Oftentimes what I'll like to do is either in the software, or even sometimes I'll do this in just like a paper notebook, is I'll essentially kind of like log what happened during particular days.
Okay.
The whole goal of what you're doing on set for a big project like this is you want to avoid the scenario of getting back home at the end of, how many months is it?
1.5. This is 6 weeks. Yeah.
Okay. So you want to avoid the getting back at home after 6 weeks and just feeling like you have this huge just pile of footage that feels overwhelming. Because that's where
I know that's
I've
what
seen,
I will have if I don't sort of, break it down.
Yeah. So that's where I've seen like projects completely tank, is because like the level of overwhelm when people get back is just too much to handle. And so just thinking about how you can chip away each day. And so that might be logging footage. It might be, if you shot an interview with 2 cameras, just getting those synced up in a multi-camera sequence, while you're on the bus, just so you have that done. And then you'll have those like, go for it.
Oh, sorry. I was just, because with scripted content, when you've got it all storyboarded and how it's going to flow, if it was over a long period, you could actually sort of chip away and get rough cuts done. But the very nature of, documentary filmmaking, and you're sort of embracing the unexpected, and you don't necessarily know what's going to come around the corner the next day, you would never sort of rough cut as it's going, you would always sort of wait to the very end. Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, I haven't worked on unscripted films before, so I don't know exactly about the workflow. But yeah, I'm just a huge fan of like starting to chip away as early as possible. And that could look like a bunch of different ways. Like for example, with you filming this walk, right? There are going to be particular scenes that you know are going to be in the final project, right? The scene of this person saying goodbye to their loved ones, or the scene of like them starting the walk. Like that's going to be a
shots
scene.
That are, they're going to be there. Yeah.
That's going to be a scene. So, right. So for example, I might shoot that entire scene, you know, locked in, focused, and then say I have like 6 hours of downtime. We're going to the hotel and we're going to meet them at the end of the day. Well, then I might take all that footage, put it into, you know, organize it on my hard drives, organize it in Premiere, and then I might bring it into its sequence of its own and essentially pull selects from that day.
Sure. Yeah.
I have a video on my channel
about overview, but doing sequencing, editing certain specific sequences that you know will flow. Yeah.
Taking a sequence that you know is going to be in there can be really nice. I know that there are a lot of documentary filmmakers who, at the end of the day, will just like to watch some things through. Don't even do a lot with it. You know, maybe they'll make footage a little bit of notes, footage review, just to get a sense of like what you have. And I think especially at like where you are in your filmmaking too, like you're early on, you're going to be making a lot of mistakes day to day. There's no way around that. So reviewing your footage can also be helpful at the end of the day, even if you're not taking notes, even if you're not doing any organization, just reviewing to say like, I missed the audio there. I didn't get it. What could I do tomorrow to try to get that better? Oh, I didn't get the color there. Cause you're going to be making a lot of mistakes
along the way. Yeah, no, definitely.
Yeah. So then you can adjust day to day as you're learning and try to like ramp up the speed of that learning curve.
Nice. That's super helpful. Thank you.
Yeah.
This is a slightly separate to the context, but just a general question for you. Aspect ratio. How do you decide what aspect ratio the output's gonna be? Because obviously you need to film for that. Most of the things I've seen of yours, you normally sort of stick to 16:9. Is that a artistic choice, or is that just you want to get maximum sensor output? Or
honestly, it's not something I've ever really thought much about. Every production that I've ever worked on has been shot in 16:9, from journalistic outlets to Hulu series to my own stuff. I don't have any sort of like strong artistic draw or feeling about any aspect ratio, to be honest with you. Okay. So I just stick to like what the camera's native one is and what gets me a lot of real estate on screen. The only time I've been conscious about it recently is I recently got like my parents' old camcorder that shoots in like kind of like a, I don't know, 4x3 or something like that. Yeah. And so like that's been fun to play with and see how that gives like a little bit of a nostalgic feel in footage. So it's something that I'm playing with, but I mostly just stick to 16:9.
Okay, fine. Good to know.
Yeah.
My feeling going into it was, obviously I've shot this vlog stuff in the past and it's kind of felt a bit, I don't know, maybe I'm just being overly self-critical, but it's kind of always felt a bit gimmicky. And in my mind, one way of solving that was, I'm just going to shoot in super cinematic, 2.3 by 1 or whatever. And it's gonna instantly elevate it. But
it's all story.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. Story is definitely king. These are going to hop all about, by the way. So sorry about that. In your interview where you interviewed John Blair about sort of, what mistakes documentary filmmakers make and sort of advice. One of the things he said was building a network. And I was just wondering, I know you come from a journalistic background, but for someone like me, I've got pretty much no contacts in the space. I came from not a creative background. What did you do early on to necessarily find a community of people?
As you see with my YouTube channel, like I'm definitely active using social media as a place to share stories, share what I'm working on. So that's been one way that I've connected with people who are like-minded or interested in similar things to me, is just kind of like organic connection through interacting with other people's social media posts. when I have identified people who live in my local area who are like better than me at something I want to learn, I'm very quick to reach out to them and say like, hey, I'd love to assist you in any way I can. Like really appreciate, your skill set, would love to learn and do so by like being on set and assisting you. So that's been a great way to do it. I'm a part of a couple different kind of networks. Video Consortium is one that I'm a part of. That's like an online network of people who are in the nonfiction filmmaking space, a lot of video journalists, documentary filmmakers. So that's one to check out. And then just getting outside, getting out into the world and starting to make things.
Yeah, you'll naturally find people.
Yeah, you kind of like naturally find your people.
I think that's definitely something I'm symptomatic of, which is being at the start. I'm trying to, watch every video under the sun to pre-plan and how to script and how to whatever. But as a consequence, still today, I haven't actually made anything yet. And I think just getting out there and shooting the damn thing is gonna, be so much more experience.
I also will say, like, I hope that you embrace your background in finance as something that can help you as a documentary filmmaker.
Okay.
Because I've, not that I'm getting this from you, like this air from you, but I have seen in the past of people who come to like a career or a hobby in the creative arts a little bit, whenever you come to it, but a little bit later, sometimes feel like, oh, I was selling out by doing whatever I was doing beforehand, or like that wasn't my passion. Now I'm in my passion, and kind of like shove that past or that expertise aside. But like, we all have different backgrounds and expertise that we're bringing to projects, and they can all elevate us. They can all elevate us in terms of your expertise, like your subject matter expertise, that network of people. Like, so I wouldn't ignore whatever skill set and whatever expertise that you've developed in that life. Think about ways that it might pertain to being a successful filmmaker, if that's what you want to be. I mean, who knows? You might have vastly better skills at raising money or managing finances on a particular project than anyone who's watching my channel because of your background in finance. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is for you, but like, don't just kind of like shove it aside as like your past life. Like let that come in and inform who you are as a filmmaker.
That's advice I wasn't expecting. And okay. I'll do my best to work on that. Final one then. The very nature of documentary filmmaking, I guess, is to tell a story about a cause or about an objective. How do you go about sort of striding the balance between trying to tell the story as authentically as possible versus trying to preach your interpretation or your biases on a situation onto it? So for example, this walk that I'm doing now is going to be about, nuclear bombs, war, that there is, potentially, subject material that, could cause reactions in some people. I think most of the world is fairly consensus about, nukes and whatnot. But how do you go about sort of pushing your message versus just trying to tell the story as authentically as possible?
And are you asking that from a place of, is this like kind of a personal story for you where you feel kind of like an emotional charge towards?
Oh, I see. No, I'm not that involved. No.
Okay. And so where is this question coming from you?
I guess in terms of the narrative that I'm trying to construct, I don't want to make it feel too preachy or trying to shower doom and gloom, nukes, the end of the world and whatnot. I want to try and tell the story of the organization and what they're doing. And as part of that, they've asked to have some inclusion of the history of nukes, touching on the current climate of nukes with Iran, Israel, whatnot, nuclear accords, NATO treaties that are going on. And in my mind, especially as beginner to the documentary filmmaking, touching on current affairs and trying to take a stance, as it were, or tell a message about it, I was just hesitant to do that.
Okay, well, I think this is a great question. And I think it's one I think about a lot, and it's one I think a lot about because of my background as a journalist, my training as a journalist that informs who I am as a documentarian. And when you're being trained as a journalist, you are trained to remove yourself in every way from the reporting process, the gathering information process, to the writing or producing of the story process. There is this impossible ideal of objectivity that you're striving for. And in light of that objectivity, removing yourself is kind of part of the process. As a documentarian, the lines of objectivity, of activism, of communicating a very direct message that you have, those like ethical lines are blurred in many ways. And I think that there's a lot of incredible filmmaking that comes out of someone who does have a very clear perspective that they want to share with the world, who is an activist, who wants to raise awareness of something. I mean, if you look at, the movie that won the Oscar for Best Documentary this past year, which was No Other Land, like that's an individual telling a story about Israeli occupation in their own hometown in Palestine. That's not somebody who is like telling that story from a journalistic perspective where they're interviewing people on both sides. He's like, this is my story. This is my reality. And I'm telling that. For me, the way I think about this question a lot is when I'm telling stories about animals. I have been vegan for over 7 years now. I have a very strong perspective on animal rights and the animals that we have been influenced to think of as food or used for entertainment or lab testing. I believe that those animals have the right to live their lives without unnecessary suffering. I come to this issue with a very strong perspective, and it can be tempting to really want to communicate in a strong-handed way what that perspective is. And there are some films that do that. If we're just looking at the space of animal rights or veganism, people are all aware of films like What the Health or Game Changers. Like those are made by people who have a very strong perspective to put forth, and those have made an impact. So that's great. The types of films that I personally am interested in making are less heavy-handed. My interest is more in like the craft of story, compelling characters. And I believe that if I tell a really powerful story that leans into all those principles, that I won't need to be heavy-handed. Like one of my favorite films or one of my favorite documentaries that's not explicitly about animal rights is My Octopus Teacher. I don't know if you've seen that film, but like that would never be considered a film that is about like animal rights. It's not about don't eat octopus. It's not seaspiracy. And yet I've had family friends and people within my own family who watched My Octopus Teacher and said, I'm never eating octopus again. Well, and they're doing that because the story was so compelling that they start to empathize with the characters in that film. And the characters are one of the characters is the octopus. And so that is what I try to do. I try to, as much as I can,
it's like show don't tell.
Yeah, exactly. It's that show don't tell, but it can be a really delicate balance. And I'm sure that I don't get it right all the time. And I think it's probably something that I'll be navigating throughout the course of my career is when to back off and just let the story speak for itself, or in what mediums, in what ways do I push a little bit more of my perspective?
Okay, no, that's really insightful and something new I learned about you. Thank you so much, Austin, for your time. Again, absolutely. I do really appreciate you taking the time to sit down with me.
Just know that like, if this is one of your first big projects, like I always say on the channel, like there's no getting around making mistakes. Yeah. It's very likely that
terrible.
Yeah. Be brave enough to be terrible. Exactly. That's what it's all about. Yeah. And making sure that you finish, like get something done that you can share with people.
The number of unfinished because I'm trying to sort of achieve perfection videos in my sort of
that will not serve
library
you.
is staggering. So yeah, no, that is the one goal I've set for myself. More than anything, more than creatively fulfilling or whatever. It's just actually don't give up on this one. See it through. Finish it.
You got this. I believe in you. I really enjoyed this conversation with Harry, and I hope it gave you some ideas that you can take into your projects. If you're interested in getting one-on-one advice for your project, check out the link in the description and comments. I'll see you in the next one. Until then, go out and tell some stories.